Good afternoon and welcome to the 2021 Spring Nembutsu Seminar hosted by the Kawai Honganji Council. I hope that all of you are well and have been vaccinated. Hopefully, we will be returning to a new normal in the near future. Today, we are fortunate to have the Reverend Dr. Kenneth Tanaka as our guest lecturer. Sit back, relax, listen to and internalize the teachings of Shin Buddhism and Amida Buddha as presented by Dr. Tanaka. Thank you.
So, Reverend Tanaka, if you'd be so kind, please join us.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning here in Tokyo. I hope you're seeing the scene with the cherry blossoms from Tokyo. I wanted you to share a bit of spring in Tokyo, where the blossoms have bloomed quite early, and as you can see, it's beautiful. So I'm looking forward to the 2 hours of time that we can share studying and talking about Shin teaching. And I hope that you will have some questions and comments during the 2 breaks that I hope to take. The first break will be after about half an hour. And at that time, raise your hand and speak up and share your thoughts or comment. It's good to have a dialogue rather than a one-directional lecture, which I don't like very much. I like to hear from you as well. Also, I sent you an outline. Some of you probably printed it out, but afterwards, if you're not sure of certain things, you can go back and take a look at it. Also, I just sent you about a little over an hour ago a questionnaire that which is optional, of course. But if you can and are willing, fill it out. You can just copy and paste it onto the email and just send it to me. That would help me to get a better sense of how things went, and also how I can improve in my presentations in the future. So with that, let's start. Okay. Yeah, if you just notice the cherry blossoms on the right-hand side is quivering. It's a shape. It's swaying in the wind. It's just to make this possible. It takes up a lot of space on the database. Or anyway, okay. So I'm gonna this. The topic of my talk is, as noted here, Essence and Practice Shin Buddhism 2. It's kind of a follow-up on what I did in December with you all, and I wanted to go further into Shin Buddhism. Last time was more kind of a touching the surface. So we talked about 3 learnings, and I think we talked about Gomonshu's our pledge, but wanted to get into the heart of Shin Buddhism. So we'll be doing Nembutsu meditation, talking about that, and the meaning of Amida Buddha and Pure Land, and both of which were presented in the flyer to you all. But I also added the subtopic of Shinjin at the end. Of course, each of these require a whole day just to talk about one. But I think that given the situation, I just wanted to present the essence of these, major teachings or practices of Shin Buddhism, and so that you have a better understanding of what Shin is. Okay. All right. I think it's important for us to frame our discussion, and I have been recently using this sketch of the horizontal and the vertical. And horizontal is the one that you can see here with here like this, and it's kind of wiggly or jaggedy because it's a bumpy road, or life is tough. Life is a bumpy road. And I think we have to acknowledge as Buddhists that life indeed is that. Without that, recognition, it's hard to make sense of what Buddhism is doing. So, so the horizontal is the objective world in which we all live, school, family, jobs, honganji, we all cohabitate on the horizontal level, but it's bumpy. It doesn't always go your way. It's full of difficulties. So life is tough. Life is a bumpy road. But many of us, those of us who have entered a Buddhist path or any religious path, or maybe thinking about, how to deal with what goes on the horizontal level, that would be on the vertical level. And that for us is the Buddhist path. And many people in the world don't have that vertical dimension. And again, it doesn't have to be Buddhism. Other religious traditions, other philosophy, other literature, any way of having views, correct views to deal with the horizontal. And for most of us, it's the vertical is the Buddhist path, and specifically the Shin path. And so here, what is important, the relationship between the vertical and the horizontal is this, that, well, difficulties are inevitable on the horizontal, but whether you suffer or not is optional. This is, a popular saying these days that you find quoted quite often, but difficulties are inevitable, but suffering is optional. So difficulties and suffering are not the same. Please keep that in mind. For example, Buddha faces difficulties, or Shinran Shonin faced difficulties, but they didn't suffer to the same degree as those who don't have much knowledge or understanding of the teaching. So the higher you go on the vertical, you approach Buddhahood. Of course, in Shin Buddhism, we do not become Buddhas in this life, but that's okay, because any level, a higher level that you reach, you have a better understanding, greater wisdom and compassion to deal with what goes on the horizontal. And so the higher you go, the suffering becomes less. But difficulties will be around. Of course, the difficulties may decline because you have a better heart and mind. For example, with greater understanding about Dharma, you treat other people better. And so your human relationship on the horizontal will go better than if you didn't have that wisdom and compassion. So we cannot always control our situation, but can control how we see and deal with our situation. So this goes to the heart of the Dharma, the Nembutsu, that so how we see and deal with our situation will be transformed the more we understand the Dharma and the Nembutsu. Okay, so now, sorry that this is not in English. I just didn't have time to get it together in English, but the horizontal is the same, the vertical is the same, but what's different? It's the circle of compassion. which is none other than Amida, vow, and other power. So now, so this describes the distinctiveness of Shin Buddhism. The vertical is what you find in other forms of Buddhism. What Shin offers especially is the circle. I call it the circle of compassion, which represents Amida, the vow, and the other power, which continues to work towards us, workings that impact our lives. And if we open ourselves to it, then we are able to access it, so to speak. But what it says is that wherever you are on the path, if you understand the Shin teaching, you realize that you are already in the circle, and that has a lot to say about your spiritual status and the assurance that when this present life ends, you will automatically become Buddhas. So that is almost the uniqueness of Shin Buddhism, because we emphasize, or Shinran Shonin emphasize, the workings of Amida, vow, and the other power. So if you want to, when people ask you what's Shin Buddhism, what's the uniqueness of Shin Buddhism, you can say, well, there's a horizontal, and Buddhism, we deal with it on a vertical level, but we also have the circle of compassion, which is very distinct in Shin. It's not to say that you don't find this in other Mahayana forms of Buddhism, but it is not as strong, and it is not necessarily meant just for lay people, or it doesn't necessarily make it easy for the lay people to access this circle. Oh, okay. I want to go into a simple meditation. Now, I know that meditation is a controversial word in Shin Buddhism, but you know, after all, Shinran Shonin meditated for 20 years. And as long as we don't feel that my action in meditating is a cause for Shinjin awakening, then it is fine to do meditation out of a sense of gratitude, a sense of, you know, confirming the fact that we are already in the circle. Now, so just to place meditation in the broader Buddhist framework, Eightfold Noble Path is the right place to go, or the six paramitas. These are but today I'm using the Eightfold Noble Path, and you have, you know, the right view, right intention. This represents wisdom. And then you have speech. You know, I will think pure and beautiful thoughts. Well, that thoughts would be here. View, right intention. And I will think pure and beautiful, I will say pure and beautiful words will be speech here. And to do pure and beautiful deeds. And that would be the conduct and the livelihood. And so you have those three actions, karmic actions represented here. But supporting that is the meditative dimension called effort, mindfulness, and concentration. And the mindfulness is much easier to practice. Concentration is a much higher form of meditation, which we cannot really accomplish unless you become a monk or a nun in a monastery and dedicate your whole life to it. So mindfulness is something that is easier to do. Oh, sorry, this is. Oh, okay. Okay, first is mindfulness. I know some of you have already done this, but just for those who are completely new, I discussed this in my new book, Jewels, on page 116. So if you have it, you can, refer to it. So we don't have much time, but if you can, and if you want, and if you don't want, you can just listen. Sit up straight in your chair, like this, like the young lady here. And you can close your eyes or keep them half open, okay? And then what we do is we focus our attention right under our nose, the nostrils, where the air goes in and out, okay? Please do that and breathe naturally through your nose. As you do, when you breathe out, when you breathe in, you can say in. When you breathe out, you can say out. Oh, you don't have to do that, say anything. Just notice that when you breathe in, it's a little cool. When you breathe out, it's a little warm. And please do that. And as you do that, different thoughts will emerge. You cannot stop them. But when they emerge, just note and just let it go and go back to your breathing. So let's see if you can do that.
You are using the computer audio.
Okay, this kind of this is the basic, and people say you reach no thoughts. That is not possible because thoughts will arise. When it arises, just note and let it go and go back to breathing. And as simple as that, but it's very difficult to maintain because our thoughts wander like a monkey on a tree. But just simply do that. And even, 2-3 minutes, even 5 minutes a day will have some difference in your life. Just a time to just be quiet. Okay, so, and then what I do as a Shin Buddhist is that after I do this a little bit, then when I breathe in, take a little deeper breath, and then I breathe out. I recite the Nembutsu. So, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda. You can voice it or you can say it quietly. Namanda, Namanda. In a way, this is symbolic of taking in oxygen, which enables my life to continue. But you recite the Nembutsu as an expression of gratitude. So this is a kind of a Shin Buddhist way of Shin Buddhist approach to mindfulness. Okay, now the next one. So I just, for those who wish to do this, please, after the seminar, practice it in your life before you go to bed, or when you get up in the morning, or right before you have a meal. You can do that too. Now, the second one, which is bodily movement. In mindfulness, there are other forms, but breathing is basic, and bodily movement is basically being mindful of what we do. Okay, so when I was a novice monk in Thailand many years ago, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here, is that I had a towel that I washed, and I placed it on the line to dry it, hang it to dry it. And I threw it over like this. And then my teacher was watching me and he said, no, 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 no. He said, no, you don't do it that way. So what he did, he took the towel and he put it underneath the wire from the other side and flipped it over this way and hanged it. And so I said, why do you do that? He said, well, if you do it that my way, you become mindful of the fact that you are hanging the towel. If you just flick it over the line, then you're not being mindful. So I discussed this in page 118, and this applies to everything that we do, especially when we eat or listen to people, that you listen attentively, mindful of what a person is saying. A lot of times, we're only listening to or hearing only a portion of what other people say. But the more we are mindful, you feel that life is deeper, life is fuller, because you experience more. So when you eat, when I was a monk in Thailand, when we eat, the whole eating is a kind of a meditative practice. We ate with our hands, so we touch our food and we feel the texture of the rice that you're putting into your mouth, and you put it into in your mouth, and you chew on it and you taste the food. But you have to do it attentively and not be talking to other people or watching TV. Now, I must say that you don't have to do it for every meal. I think once in a while is good to appreciate. And I'll talk a little bit more about the food part. So anyway, the bodily movement, just being conscious of our movement, eating, listening to people, and these days, now that I don't go out very much, I spend more time at home. So even when I wash the dishes, sometimes I don't turn on the TV as I often do, but just to kind of just focus on what I do, so I can feel the texture of the water, even the sound, the little sound that it makes. You'll be surprised to see that there's such a variety in the sound all around us. And now I look, I have more time to look out the window, and I see the birds and the trees, and so it's all an example of mindfulness. Okay, so and after I talk about this, we'll take a break. But I call it mindfulness gassho, which builds on what we just did. But people sometimes say, well, Shin Buddhism, we often talk about this kind of abstract spiritual things, and what are things that we can do every day. And I feel that there are many things we can do. And again, whatever I say is not mandatory, but I think we all want to find things that we can do to live our religion. And so I'm sure all of you have a home altar. And one thing that we can all do is go to the altar at least once a day, put our hands together. And some people like to chant. I recite the golden chain. And even though we know in our mind, but when you do it mindfully, as you recite the golden chain, for example, I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words. And so I try to acknowledge that and to try to do that during that day. And then the part that what I do now depends on my happiness, but happiness of others. That is very important. My actions has consequences for people around us. And so what I do every morning is I put in my tea, and then I take a little cup, and then I take it, place it in the altar, and then every day gives me a chance to go to the altar. And so, you can find something that resonates with you, what is meaningful. yeah, the golden chain is something that I had grown up with, and obviously you all know that it emanated in Hawaii. So it's sometimes what I do is I have the think big, don't think small. The think big is life is a bumpy road. B, life is interdependent. I, life is impermanent. Life is G is life can be great. So think big, right? So I kind of recite that life is a bumpy road, and the opposite is life is we shouldn't think small all the time. Small represents life is smooth, as opposed to life is bumpy road. M, life is mine, as opposed to interdependent. And then the A is life should always be the same, as opposed to impermanent. And life is lousy, as opposed to life can be great. So so I try to live remind myself of the Buddhist the principles of impermanence and interdependence, and remind myself by reciting that. Okay, at meals, it's a good opportunity for all of us to remind ourselves. And I don't know how many, I'm sure many of you will say itadakimasu, which is a traditional general Japanese practice. People in Japan do that. But I think as a Shin Buddhist, well, at least I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but I myself say usually Namu Amida Butsu, because that is my religious foundation. And then itadakimasu. And then thank you, mother, for preparing the food, or thank you, whoever. And when you do this, be mindful, and if you can, look at one of the ingredients on your plate. Well, if it's a carrot, if you can for just a split second, imagine the carrot in the ground, in the field, and imagine it, being nourished by the water and the sunlight. So the whole universe contributes to the growing of the carrot, and how that carrot is now in front of on your plate, all chopped up and ready to be partaken. So I think a small gesture like that reminds you 3 times a day at least of the fact that we are interdependent, interconnected. And Reverend Kubose, remember, I don't know if you, Reverend Kubose, some of you know, Sonnen Kubose, he liked to talk about gassho to shoes. And I've taken a cue from that, and not all the time, but I just, when I put on my shoes or slippers, I gassho to shoes, gassho to slippers, because it's taken for granted. They don't get credit. So Reverend Kubose said, gassho to shoes. So he really emphasizes at one of the summer session at the Buddhist Study Center, I would say 6 years ago, when Dr. Bloom was still alive, and we had a wonderful time. And then Dr. Bloom said to Reverend Kubose, what you say, the gratitude to shoes goes to the soul of our tradition. You get it? Soul. and then I said something to the effect, well, that's a shoo-in for the best humor of this seminar. The shoo-in, yeah, okay. And then somebody in the audience said, yes, we have to put our best foot forward. So it was kind of a spontaneous exchange of humor, which was leaves me with wonderful memory, especially of Dr. Bloom, whom I think about quite often. It's quite interesting how certain people in our lives have touched you, so that even after they're gone, they continue to be with you. And I feel like right now that, especially that I'm speaking to you all in Hawaii, that he is with me in spirit. And lastly, toilet gassho. This is something, I don't know if Reverend Kubose, no, I don't think he did that, but I have been talking about this in Japan, and you know, the people in Japan are more modest, but they also kind of appreciate it. But so when we say gassho when we eat, why not say it when it goes out? You know, we don't think about it very much, you know, but hey, if they didn't come out, we will be in trouble. So, you know, we ate it, we went through the water and the fluid, and number one and number two, and you know, you don't have to do it all the time, but I do it once in a while, you know, and you feel grateful that I'm able to partake the meal and it's allowed and went through successfully. So these are very simple ways of you know, practicing mindful gassho in the spirit of Shinshu. And so actually, it's not that if you do these things that you are, quote, a better Shin Buddhist. It's actually doing these is almost a testimony or evidence of the fact that Nembutsu is working in your life. So if it's working in your life, it's going to manifest. You know, if it's working in your life, you cannot help but to put your hands together. And you can say whatever you want if you want, but the fact that you bring your palms together and express your deep gratitude and connection to what you're partaking, then that is already an expression of what you are feeling inside. So, okay, so let's take a break, and I'll entertain. So maybe I think I'm gonna. Oh boy. Oh, okay. Stop sharing for. Okay, so okay, we're like to. This is the first break, so we'll entertain comments or questions so far, and I think Reverend Majima. Well, I told Reverend Majima is going to help me, but I cannot see everyone. Oh, maybe gallery here. Oh, okay. So why don't you just raise your hand and just unmute yourself and just make a comment or ask a question. Okay, so please go ahead. Don't be shy. I cannot see all of you, so just unmute and make a comment or whatever. Most of you are hidden.
Dr. Ken.
Oh, Reverend Muneto, good to see you.
Thank you. I am very much interested in your diagram, the second one, the vertical and horizontal.
Yeah.
I think about that kind of diagram quite often.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too technical, but in my case, the circle.
Yes.
For me is Dhammakaya. Dhamma itself.
Yeah.
It's not Buddha yet. Dhammakaya. And Dhammakaya becomes Amida's primal vow, named a call, and it becomes my interesting heart. So I have that kind of what you call interpretation, and if you can, would you comment on that?
Well, I think I had Dharmakaya in there, Hoshin, wasn't it there? Yeah. So Dharmakaya is the ultimate reality from which Amida emerges. So, you know, the essence of Amida is Dharmakaya or Dharma. So, but for this discussion, I put it all together, other power, vow, Amida, and Dharmakaya is the essence of all, or the source of it all. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. But is that what you mean? I mean, you're talking about the Dharmakaya of essence, Hosho, Hoshing, and
Yes,
then
yes, yes.
yeah. So I think it's good for all of you who are present today. What Reverend Moneto is saying is that Amida Buddha, in the anthropomorphic human form, is one expression of that, of the ultimate reality called Dharmakaya, or Dharmata, or Tatata, or and in English I translate it into oneness. I'll talk about that later. I use oneness to represent the essence beyond form and words, and so that is important so that Shin Buddhism, we talk about Amida, but Amida appears in three forms, in the statue, in the picture, and then in name Namu Amida Butsu. But the essence essence is Dharmakaya, Dharmata. And I think, so, but today, just to give you a warning, or that next session, I want to talk about how we can appreciate that Dharmakaya or Amida. And I suggest that we contemplate on things physically, mentally, and societally, which I'll explain. But these are tangible ways in which we experience interconnectedness and interdependence, through which we can appreciate Amida's working, or Dharmakaya's working. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
I know Reverend Moneto has done a lot of meditation in Hawaii, so this is just really kid stuff. But if you want to know more, please ask Reverend Moneto, who is well knowledgeable in this field. So I don't know if you ever were criticized by the Honganji for doing meditation, that you are heretical, that you're doing self-power, but I'm sure he. Do you have any comment on that, Sensei? Were you ever warned, don't do meditation because that's not Shin?
Well, about 30 years ago, when I was incorporating practice of sitting in the Nembutsu retreat, it used to be 2 nights, 3 days session at the Kabuku. So we had sitting, we had what you call moments of 20 minutes of meditation. And some ministers said, oh no, that's not the Jodo Shinshu, and that's correct. But our position was, through sitting in meditation, one's awareness of the blind passion, one's awareness of Dharma, Amida's name that call, emerge. So for that reason, I was together with a few ministers introducing meditation.
Okay, yeah.
But nowadays, I don't do that again. I'm a makure, old man, so I don't sit anymore. 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
Wow.
Very freestyle.
Yeah. Well, even a little while. And okay, thank you. All right, I guess if there's anyone who want to say one thing, kind of short and brief, anybody?
Sensei.
Yes.
Art
Rod.
Kaufman here. I just want to tell you about my experience during this pandemic.
Yeah.
I have been seeing the Dharma validated by the things that are happening.
Uh-huh.
And it's been really striking for me.
Can you give me one example?
Oh, the self-centeredness of people, the compassion of people, the first responders who put their lives in danger dealing with this pandemic. I recently learned that there were 3,600 medical personnel who have died from this.
Oh.
And of course, they had their choice whether to work on it or not. People have been more compassionate. The people in my temple have shown compassion to the elders and Kapuna,
Yeah.
making masks and
Mm.
making things to help them get through this. So I've seen a Dharma at work,
Yes. Yes.
so to speak.
Well, I think that, 10 years ago when there was a great earthquake, tsunami and tidal wave in Fukushima, I really felt that kind of interconnectedness that, well, there are people doing all kinds of things to, deal with the situation, and somehow just felt grateful for the fact that there are people doing ordinary things, but those ordinary things amount to a lot to make the society function. And in this case, we're not, we know about it, but we're not really aware of all the sacrifices of, the health workers who are dealing with these, people in the hospital. And so, yeah, I guess in the times of difficulties, it opens up to things that we don't notice often, and so it's a chance to really dig deeper and to expand our awareness of not only of ourselves but awareness of our connected with other people, and it deepens our sense of gratitude, and then also a sense that I myself have to do something more. We have to do more. And I just remembered, when I was talking about the horizontal axis, I thought briefly about the recent spate of Asian hate that's taking place in the U.S. I'm sure the situation is not as bad in Hawaii, but I have 3 kids all living on the mainland, and a grandson. And so I was asked in an interview by Tricycle the other day what I thought about it, and I said that, I'm very concerned, but with Dharma, what is important is that the sense of being object of hate, if you're an Asian American, is not your problem. It's not you that's a problem. The problem is out there. And so with Dharma, we have a clear sense of worthiness within you. I am worthy. I think the problem with discrimination and hate is that you take on their hate within yourself, and you take on that hate and then begin to think, oh, I'm not as good enough, I'm subordinate, whatever. But we should not let that happen. So through the Dharma, we know that we have Shinjin, we have Buddha nature, we're fundamentally, good, and so not allow other people's problems become your problem. And at least if you have that, we can stand tall and be who you are, and do what we can to speak out. And I think that's important. One of the things that I think this whole experience has taught us is that Asian Americans tend to be the model minority, and just do good, and people respect you and whatever. And that is true to some extent. But I think that we have to also speak out for any kind of injustice, not only injustice towards those of us who are Asian American, but also towards other minorities and other people. And that wherever there is, inequality or discrimination or injustice, that it's a great opportunity for us, even the Buddhist community, to be more outward, more speaking out, not so much to demand all the time, but to, speak what we think and what we have in our thoughts. And I think it's a turning point for Buddhist temples and Asian American community in America, that this will bring on a new era of being much more open and clear about where we stand. And so, I think the Asian American population is almost 5% of the U.S. population, and it's growing in numbers, and so there'll be greater opportunity politically as well. And of course, Hawaii is kind of an anomaly in that you already have much political power, but in other parts of the U.S., I think it's a new era for us. Okay, I think I want to get back to okay. So next session is a little bit longer, but I think we should be able to get it done. Now, Shinran Shonin practiced what is called well, he didn't call it's the Kambutsu Kanso Jogyo Zanmai. These are a form of meditation, and in order to, and I bring this up because the topic is how to more everyday way to talk about, understand, and appreciate Amida and Pure Land. Amida and Pure Land are two teachings that are more difficult for us because it's not readily visible. And part of the reason for that is in the past, people accepted, Amida and Pure Land as a matter of course. But in a scientifically charged world in which we are educated scientifically, that those teachings are not as apparent. So I had a survey which I did, a number of years ago, and I asked the 47 lay and 17 Shin ministers 2 questions. What does Amida Buddha mean to you? And please ask, and maybe you can go through this. Amida who resides in the Western Pure Land. B, an ultimate being but differs from Christian God. C, a symbol of wisdom and compassion. A personification of the working of quote unquote life in our everyday life. So those with the largest number of answers were C and D, a symbol of wisdom and compassion, personification. So what this tells you is that people in the US, Shin Buddhists in the US, they don't see Amida so much as a being. We call it more dualistically or mythically, and which nothing is wrong with that, but I think we're much more open to appreciating Amida as a symbol, as a personification. Also with Pure Land too. What does Pure Land mean to you? A place that lies 1 billion Buddha lands to the west, be not a place but a state equal to nirvana for attaining Buddhahood. C, an expression of the state when the mind is purified. A place where deceased persons go. So these B and C were the ones that had the greatest answer. And so I think B is telling it's not a place, but a state equal to nirvana. And that is in keeping with the teaching of Shinran Shonin. And so it's much more this here and now, more immanent as opposed to transcendent. And also an expression of the state when the mind is purified. Now this one doctrinally is problematic. It is not in my view, it's more of a Zen appreciation, not an appreciation that I think Shinran had. Well, this is my point. But some people, I think especially ministers, try to explain new people to Buddhism by talking about Pure Land in that way. But either case, okay, so please ask yourselves how you would answer these questions. So the reason why I brought this up is to show that I think that in America and even in Japan, modern people, contemporary people are more open to appreciating Amida in Pure Land in a more in a here and now or imminent way, and not we could also non-dual is something that is not far off in the distant. And but again, I want to emphasize that whatever we say about Amida and Pure Land, they're all symbols. You know, it's all ways in which we try to make sense of what they are. But in the past, in the ancient times, Amida and Pure Land were thought only in a mythical way, more in as a part of like a myth. But what I'm trying to do here is to go beyond that and take the myth. Myth is fine because it expresses things that cannot be expressed in words. But I'm taking the myth and trying to demythologize it, I guess is one word, but think about it in terms of everyday context. And to do that, I wish to do the following. So I would like for you to get back to that, meditation mode, sitting straight with your back straight. You can have your eyes half closed or fully closed. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to take one or two examples from each of the 4 dimensions of our lives. They're physical, mental, societal. And we'll start with the physical, which includes air, food, water, eyeglasses, medication, etc. All those things that are things that make our lives possible. Obviously, air and food and water are essentials. Without them, we cannot exist physically. So can you take just one of the items I mentioned and think about how air or oxygen is another way of looking at it, and just sit in a meditative posture, and this time just in your mind think of all the ways in which without air you would not be able to exist, or and food too, and water, and kind of contemplate on that. If you didn't have them, what would you be missing? Of course, air is, so we can put the air aside or oxygen, but you can take one of the favorite foods and contemplate on where it came from and how you enjoy the food and how it nourishes you. So just contemplate for a minute, please. Okay, I wonder what you contemplated on. I contemplated on my eyeglasses, because nowadays without the glasses, I won't be able to do, my studies and my talks, etc. And it's so essential. I also thought of, I recently enjoy manju. In Japan, at the convenience stores, they sell these really good pastries for real cheap. The fact that it's cheap is not what is important, that they're very good. And so every evening nowadays, I have one manju or ampan. And my wife makes kind of kids me about how my face is lit up with so much joy whenever I'm partaking that little ampam. Okay, now I want to go to the mental part, and this includes the mental dimension of our lives that nourishes and makes our lives more meaningful. Love of our family and friends, caring of teachers and mentors, sense of belonging to community, or inspiring beauty of nature and the arts. So I want you to take any one of these. I suggest someone who has meant a lot in your life, someone who supported you when you were down, someone who gave you the confidence to get up and get back into life, someone like that. So think about that person. And in a practice called Nikon contemplation, they ask questions like, what have such people done for you? So think of what they have done for you. Okay, so please start. 1 minute. Okay, usually in Nikon contemplation, you spend a long time and you take that person, and from the very first time that you met that person, and you go, you contemplate and reminisce of all the things that she or he has done for you from the earliest time up to the present. And you'll notice that you have done so much less than what they've done for you. And so we then come to realize that mentally, the fact that we're a normally functioning human being in society, it would not have been possible without these kinds of mental support. Okay, let's go to societal. And this includes institutions in our lives, the churches, temples, schools, hospitals, fire station, police stations, that institutions and societies have supported us. And I think that, for many of us, temples and schools, and for some hospitals, they have been so instrumental. So can you take any one of these and see how you've benefited from them? And we'll do half a minute for this one. Okay. Societal, I thought of the hospital, Children's Hospital in Oakland, where my daughter, when she was 1.5 years, caught Kawasaki disease and was hospitalized there for a week. And I just recall what we would have done without the hospital, because we had no idea what was going on, no treatment, of course. And so institutions like that supported our family. And of course, schools provide the education for all of us. Mentally, I didn't talk about, I wonder who you picked. And I'm sure that you picked, the person that you picked is someone who has had enormous impact and is almost an Amida to you. And so I have many people, and as I said recently, a little while ago, I thought of Dr. Bloom. I think of him often. He was my boss when I was at IBS as a junior faculty member. And, he was someone who really cared about Shinshu and Buddhism. And he gave me a lot of latitude to, do what I wanted to do as a young faculty member. And so, what I have been able to accomplish since then, I feel like it's because he gave me the room to, explore and to do things when I was just starting out. And also, Dr. Taitetsu Unno, I just did a lecture for his Dr. Taitetsu Unno memorial lectures that started at IBS. And as I was preparing for that talk that I did as the first speaker for that lecture series, it just made me realize that he had written me, number of letters, handwritten, long letters, when I was just starting out as an academic, and gave me a lot of wonderful advice. And so we have been nurtured by these mentors, and that without them, our lives would be less for it. Okay, so now the spiritual is we will take up. So these four: physical, mental, societal, spiritual. If you notice, it's comes from a WHO sense of what makes you happy, or total pain. If you didn't have these, you would be, well, a source of pain. And so it comes from kind of the medical field. But okay, now this part is a little bit more, how would I say, more, need a little bit more explanation. So we're talking about Amida and Pure Land. So first we'll focus more on Amida. So Amida would be understood as spiritual blessing through what I'll be speaking in terms as spiritual blessing. So let me just read this here. Spiritual blessing cannot be experienced directly like the physical, mental, and societal blessings, but you can see the spiritual as the source, as well as the working that manifests through the other three blessings. So this is something that I have come to feel strongly, that Amida cannot be seen directly. It's obvious, right? But one way of appreciating this, well, traditionally, we appreciate Amida through the images and also the name, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay. But what I'm trying to do in this seminar is in order to appreciate Namo Amida Butsu, we should look at these tangible expressions or blessings, and they are physical, mental, and societal, and the spiritual is the source of that. It's at the foundation. And also you can see that it manifests through the other blessings. So in other words, Amida is a source as well as the working that manifests through the others. Okay, in Shin Buddhism, the spiritual blessing is expressed as Amida, primal vow, or the other power. So the spiritual, of course, ultimately, we cannot fully fathom and understand what Amida, primal vow, or other power is. But it is here, what I'm saying is at the foundation as a source of the blessings that we just contemplated on. Okay, so Amida vow, other power cannot be experienced in the same manner as the other blessings, which I said already. Nevertheless, you can access it through our deeply felt sense of being interconnected and feeling grateful through your contemplation of the three blessings. I hope that through the contemplation that you feel more connected with the food, with the eyeglasses, with the loved ones, with the societal institutions. So you have a deep sense of connectedness, and also a sense of gratitude that develops by being more sensitive to the blessings. Okay, so you then can take your deeply felt feelings and direct them to Amida by reciting the sacred name Namo Amida Butsu, or Namanda, which literally means I take refuge in the Buddha of immeasurable light and life, or experientially, Amida is one with me. So now I would like for you to, kind of sit like before and try to go back and think about the person, especially the person that really supported you, the object of that contemplation, and feel that sense of gratitude and connectedness, and keep and hold that thought with you, because now we want to recite the Nembutsu as you hold that thought of gratitude and connectedness. Okay, so let's do, you can, voice and Namandabu, Namandabu. Please continue reciting loudly or quietly or silently, it's fine. And then I will, as you do that, I will read the 18th vow in the largest sutra, in which the Bodhisattva Dharmakara pledges. Okay, please continue to recite. And what's important is for you to have that sense of gratitude and connectedness. If when I attain Buddhahood, the sentient beings of the 10 quarters, with sincere mind entrusting themselves, aspiring to be born in my land and saying my name, perhaps even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain the supreme enlightenment. This is our important 18th vow. It's saying that if by doing this, having this sincere mind, entrusting mind, and aspiring to be born to become Buddha, if we do not attain enlightenment, then he will not attain enlightenment. That is the logic and the aspiration of Amida Buddha. So, well, you can kind of get back to normal. So as you recite the sacred name, you can imagine Amida in ways that you most feel comfortable with. So the sacred name, Namo Amida Butsu, and then how we imagine Amida. I think we can be open to different ways of imagining Amida. Pure Land Buddhism is much more of a tradition of imagination. So not just intellect, but of feelings, of total being. So some people like to imagine Amida as an anthropomorphic or person-like Amida, as we see in the statues and pictures. Or some people, probably not so many in America, but Chinese characters, Namo Amida Butsu, which Renyo Shonin, the 8th patriarch, said is the best of the representation because we don't get hung up on it. But here, the number 3, so we imagine Amida as a deeply felt objects from the physical, the mental, and the societal blessings that you contemplated on. So in a way, I also often contemplate on my grandmother, maternal grandmother, who is the one that really actually raised me. And I have such a very close, intimate thoughts about her. And so when I think of Amida, her image often emerges, and sometimes they overlap. But it's through the feeling, the compassion that she showed me it's through that compassion that I connect with Amida as the ultimate expression of compassion in my life. So Amida vow, other parts should not be understood merely intellectually, but can be appreciated existentially as a voice of truth that was meant precisely for persons such as myself. This is the spirit of Shinran who uttered, "When I think about the compassionate vow of Amida, it was meant precisely for such a person as myself, Shinran." And you can include your name here. So this is very important, is that we have to really personalize it. We have to make it something that means something to you personally. So when that realization that it was meant for someone just like me, not such a person, precisely for such a person as myself. The personalizing is very important. Okay, so and finally in this section, Pure Land. Amida is rooted in oneness, Ichinyo, or naturalness, Jinen, or Dharmakaya, as Reverend Munita was saying. So Amida Buddha is rooted in the ultimate reality called oneness or naturalness, which is inconceivable and thus beyond our comprehension. Amida vow, other power, is a dynamic dimension of oneness or naturalness that actively reaches out. So Amida is the dynamic dimension that reaches out to us. Now, in the Pure Land, right below it, Pure Land is also rooted in oneness or naturalness, but is the static dimension and lies beyond this present life. So it is described as something, place or state in which we access or reach after this life. But all of this is part of oneness or naturalness. That is, but Amida is much more dynamic, reaches out to us, and Pure Land is a realm where we are embraced after this life is over. But as like the great circle of compassion, we are embraced in that great compassion that is inconceivable, but we are definitely within it and are embraced. Okay, let's take I'm gonna stop here and I noticed that I'm gonna change my position as you get ready, and maybe maybe you can see enough. Okay, can we too bright. All right, any questions, comments so far? What I have done is somewhat unorthodox or not traditional, and I'm doing this because I think the traditional explanation only is inadequate to reach people who are educated scientifically in a modern period. It's another way of appreciating what Amida and Pure Land mean to us. And, we just have to try all different kinds of ways to talk about the Dharma, not just in a mythological way. I think the mythological or myth of Dharmakara becoming Amida Buddha, we definitely need to keep that. But as Joseph Campbell, who well-known scholar of myth, said or talked about how myth is a way in which we talk about things that cannot be talked about in words. And it enables us to approach the truth of what the myth is saying. It's like the proverbial finger pointing to the moon. it's pointing. And so what I have done today is a way of kind of unpacking that mythology or myth in ways that are much more tangible, through tangible expressions that we experience in this life. Okay, so anyone? How about Rod? May I call on you?
Sure. I really appreciate your explanation. It's kind of like it's just, really approaching a level of understanding, but it's a very good way of explaining it. I'm just trying to figure out, how do we get this message across to our contemporaries? How do we, even our members, to even get them to start thinking about what is Amida, what is Pure Land? Because for them, it's something that is accepted and okay, enough already. I don't need to learn anymore, kind of thing. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we, because obviously there is an opportunity for great discussion in trying to further understand what it is that we're trying to do, right? And even me, I when you explain it that way, I can't say as I have a full grasp of that, but I can feel it. To feel it.
Well,
so I was trying to understand.
First of all, you can worry about other people, but first of all, worry about yourself, because and you have to ask the question: are you settled in in your life, in what life has meant for you, having born a human being, having been done many things in your life and done very well in your job, and you have a family, but if you feel spiritually content, and if you do, then you take that contentment and share with other people the best of your ability, in whatever capacity. And we all have to do that. So I'm asking all of you, that probably all of you are much more learned or know more about the teachings than most people who are in the temples. And so you have a duty and a responsibility to do whatever little way that you can do to share that knowledge and inspiration to others. And so that's the best we can do, and we can do as an individual, but also as an institution. I think the temples are trying more to reach out to others, but we just do try to be more innovative in how we talk about things. And but I think what's important is that you have that kind of a energy and the inspiration which other people pick up. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rod. I mean, that is a concern that we all have, but we cannot really worry about other people, if they are really not interested. But there are many people who are interested out there, who are seeking, but so the audience is there. We just need to continue to plug along and do the best we can. And okay, how about from a lady? We get okay. How about, since I know you, did someone raise? Barbara, how about yourself?
Yes. I do have a question, because so often when a person regarding the Pure Land, we assume the person has gone to the Pure Land, but we're told that they don't stay there long, because they're coming back as bodhisattvas in some way. So, intellectually, I think that is acceptable, but I think mentally and spiritually, it's really difficult concept.
Well,
on a personal level.
Yeah. This is a topic that I wanted to talk about today, but I just thought that it was a little too complex or somewhat advanced. Without having kind of the basics, it would become too difficult for me to even explain. So, but I look at it as, I talked about oneness, and oneness is an expression of ultimate truth that includes love and compassion, sense of equality, and togetherness or oneness. These three are qualities that we find true in all true religions. That, Shakyamuni Buddha, Shinran Shonin, all these people, they arrived at some realization in which they exhibit compassion and love, equality in the sense of treating other people equally, with a sense that they all have dignity as a human being or even as an animal. And then the thirdly is a sense of interconnectedness, that you are one with it. I mean, these are the three qualities that you feel, and oneness or the ultimate reality of which Pure Land is and Amida are part. So I like to think that when my life ends, this life ends, I am returned to that oneness, and that oneness continues to function even today in this world. So in our lives, we have experienced, love and compassion. I mean, true compassion. And, I don't know, more and more as I hear about certain people who have dedicated their lives for the sake of others, who have, or they have overcome great difficulties, and they exhibit these three qualities of love and compassion and equality and oneness. I get very emotional and teary-eyed. And so I began to think that this kind of wisdom and compassion is all around us in our lives. It's not always apparent, but whenever we touch it, we come in touch with it, that we are moved spiritually and emotionally. And so I feel that when I have been somewhat awakened to those qualities, when this body goes, I return to that oneness. And as part of that oneness, I join this ever incessant functioning of wisdom and compassion in the world. And so in that sense, I am returning. So I talked about Dr. Bloom and how he taught me quite a bit. He inspired me quite a bit. And his spirit or his being has returned to the oneness, and but that oneness is dynamic. It's always functioning in our lives. And so whenever I experience wisdom and compassion and love and equality and oneness, I feel that Dr. Bloom is there. He is part of that. So in that sense, he is returning. So that's and I myself, once I leave this earth, I will join that oneness. I will come back. And so I tell my kids, I'll be there whenever you feel that sense of oneness, sense of equality, sense of love and compassion. I am there. And so that makes sense to me logically. It's like the ocean and the wave, we're a wave in the ocean, and not for very long. Even if we live for 100 years, it's not the white ashes. We may live 100 years, but still, it ends. And so the wave is big when you're young, but gradually we get smaller and smaller. But we don't disappear. We just go back to the source where we came from, and that is the oneness. And then we are present when other waves are in existence, but we're part of that ocean. So I myself, I think I've talked about this. The reason why I got into Buddhism was, the greatest reason is my fear of death, and so for many years it didn't click, but I would say 20, 30, 25 years ago, gradually it became such that I feel much more at ease, and the feeling that I am embraced in that compassion, circle of compassion, and that I will join that compassion and I will return in that way. So I don't disappear. I am part of it. I will come back. And when my grandson, graduates from college, well, hopefully I'll be around even then. But let's just say the nurturance that he got, I hope that I have been able to impart a little bit of that, and when he feels wisdom and compassion and sense of equality, that I am there. So that's one way for me to appreciate what Shinran talked about as returning. And he never explains in detail how you return. So this is a realm of faith, and so I think that it's better to have the sense that we are part of this great compassionate circle. We are part of it now, and we will also be part of it even when this body disappears, and it will. And so for those of us who feel uneasy about what happens after death, we need to really search, really have to, ask yourselves, what does the teaching mean? And the explanation that I just gave, if it helps someone, then that is great. And but I think that we can imagine in different ways. The other thing is that I said, imagine is an essence of Pure Land Buddhism. And I also imagine, I said I joined this great compassion, but I can imagine coming back as a bird. I can imagine coming back as a nurse who cares for the sick, or I can imagine as there are poems by Myokonis who make reference to things like that, and and the Pure Land too. One of the things I imagine Pure Land to be is like one of the most joyful experiences in my life was when I was in first grade in grammar school, and we went on a field trip, and it was a beautiful spring day, and the butterflies are flying, the flowers in bloom, and the waters flowing, and I just, till this day, I just imagine that. And I think, if someone asks me what is a Pure Land, I imagine that to be, it's that kind of a place, and it's free. You're free to imagine, but have faith that this is not the end. We are part of this great compassionate circle, which we call Amida. Okay, so I don't, Barbara, I don't know, so if that you can, there are different ways of imagining, so please imagine. And But you might be more concerned about how other people return. Well, we do that quite a bit. We see people that we respect, and in Shin Buddhism we say, well, he or she is a returning bodhisattva. And if you can imagine that way, then well, you can imagine yourself doing the same, and that you will be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate.
Dr. Ken.
And then, and you'll be able to see your grandson, be part of, and
That's
but
encouraging.
I'm sorry.
That's encouraging. That's what
Yeah.
I want to do.
Yeah. Some people say, well, in America, we say after you die, you're 6 feet under. In Japan, they say, oh, you become just ashes. Well, those are people who don't have the spiritual life. And so those of us who have a spiritual life can have different imagination or a different understanding of what that is. And it's better to imagine that you'll be back seeing your grandson than be in ashes or being 6 feet under. So, okay, let's.
Dr. Ken?
Yes.
If you can you comment on Saha world, Edo, which is contrasted to Pure Land? So for us to appreciate Pure Land, which must be here and now, we are definitely in the Saha world. Yes, Edo, Earth existence. That is cause of the Earth existence is one's own blind passion.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think if we become aware of living in Saha world, Pure Land becomes a little bit. It's contrasted, but it's not out there. But it's coming to our side, moment after moment.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah. Well, I earlier I said that Pure Land and Amida are two aspects of oneness. Remember I said that? And then I tend to doctrinally, I think Pure Land in our teaching, at least according to Shinran, is post-death. But Amida is now, here and now. So that which works and participates in our lives today, here and now, is more the aspect of Amida, and Pure Land is more the static dimension. Well, that's the way I think, and so I find that here in the Saha world, even though it's full of blind passion and there are awful things that go on, that we can find things in our lives that are meaningful, that represent with love and compassion, equality and oneness in this life. And that's the working of Amida in this life, in the Saha world.
Yeah.
And but I do not see this Saha world as Pure Land, because there are just too many difficulties in the Saha world. And so I'm a little bit more traditional with regard to that. And some people say, this land is Pure Land, the Saha world is Pure Land. But as I said earlier, that is more of a Zen interpretation, which is fine. But I cannot say this world is Pure Land when we have all the the difficulties that we're having today, with 500,000 Americans who have died of this dreaded disease, and close to 1 million throughout the world, and all the suffering and pain that people are going through. I really wonder why, if there is God as we know it, and in Buddhism we don't talk about such God, but if all loving God created this world, why would he or she create this kind of world? So I tend to see that more of an Indian perspective, that the Saha world has its problems and we want to transcend it. And so I hope I answered Okay, so I want to share and talk about Shinjin, which we don't have much time, but now in Shin Buddhism, Shinjin is the Satori, or awakening. But ironically, we have this added, those who have Shinjin don't talk about it, and those who talk about it don't have it. So we are very shy about discussing the most important aspect of our religious life. So we've been talking about with Pure Land and Amida, but how it impacts us it has to do with Shinjin. And so the question is, well, people sometimes say, well, Shinjin is translated. Let me just go back. I'm sorry. If you notice, I have realization and entrusting. And the most common translation of Shinjin is true entrusting. But I feel that it's not just entrusting, but it's also realization. And this was the object of my talk for the Dr. Tai Uno Memorial Lecture. And so I think it's realization and also entrusting. So what do you realize and what do you entrust? If you're asked, someone asks, oh, okay, you Shin Buddhist, you talk about Shinjin. Well, what is that? And I suggest one, quick way of talking about Shinjin is referred to the two aspects of the deep mind talked about by Zendo, our fifth master, patriarch, Zendo. And it goes like this, and some of you already know this, but deep mind is true and real Shinjin. One truly knows oneself be a foolish being full of blind passions with scant roots of good, transmigrating in the three realms and unable to emerge from this burning house. And then the second part of the two aspects. So the first part is that we are foolish, ignorant being, unable to get out of this transmigration. But this is not all. And further, one truly knows without so much as a single thought of doubt that Amida's universal primal vow decisively enables us to attain birth. So let's go. Okay, so the second part is Amida's primal vow. So these are the two dimensions. So when asked, well, what do you realize and what do you entrust in? These are the two. But I want to make it simple, everyday language. So I have summarized Zendo's passage in the context of our Nembutsu contemplation that we did earlier. So a little bit of humor is that we come to realize that I am one big mess. So one mess. Okay. So what do you realize? I am a limited being, unable to physically and mentally survive on my own. And as we realized in contemplation we did earlier, right? We cannot survive without oxygen and water, and even with eyeglasses, we cannot really thrive. And then we are imperfect, being unable to liberate myself spiritually on my own, because we are very often very self-centered. An example, I take walks with my wife, especially in the past, we used to walk at night in the evening. And my wife would always bring her cell phone, but she forgets to bring it all the time. And so as we go out the door, she has to go back in the house and get the cell phone. And, it was kind of I was a little bit irritated because I wanted to go out and take a walk. Well, this went on for many years. And then one time when she forgot her cell phone, I said, why do you have to bring that? We're just going to walk for 40 minutes. And she said, well, just in case you have a stroke or a heart attack, I want to keep the cell phone so that I can call 911. And so all these years, she was doing it for me. But here I was complaining about the fact that she often forgets to bring it and takes time to start on our walk. So this is just one example of our foolish being. When things happen that irritates us, we are very self-centered, and this probably won't change very much. I think we can improve, and definitely improve somewhat, relatively speaking, but we are ultimately, from a high standard of Buddha and Shinran Shoni, we are imperfect being. But the oneness, I come to realize that I am sustained by the physical, mental, and societal blessings to survive and to thrive in my daily life. So because of that loved one who supported you, because of that hospital, we are able to survive and thrive. And the second part of this is embraced by the spiritual blessings that enabled me to attain spiritual liberation. The spiritual blessing is none other than oneness or Amida, vow, other power. So I let myself entrust in it. So here you have that. So what do you realize? You realize about yourself that I am one mess. I mean, we're not really awful beings. I mean, we're not criminals. But from the standard of a Buddha or Shinran Shoni, we are one mess. In a way, but we also realize that we are embraced by all these supportive blessings, especially the spiritual one. So we are one big mess, but we are embraced in oneness. I hope you're smiling a little bit. Okay, so though people experience differently, there are common qualities. And now the question is, well, what, Shinjin, what is it, But my point here is that that we all experience it differently. Some people experience it as a kind of like a big bang. Some people now may not feel like they experienced anything, or maybe they have little sparkles that throughout a long period of time. But Shinran Shonin says that even though we experience it differently, there are common qualities. So one here, we no longer wish to do things that are contrary to the teachings. Gradually reject the three poisons of greed, anger, and stupidity, gas, G-A-S, and come to prefer at all times the medicine of Amida Buddha. So in another letter, she talks about how that one gradually tries to do good, not to be moved by greed, anger, and stupidity. The intention is better. Okay, so that is an expression, that's a common quality. Another one is we want to hear and seek the teaching more and more. When you have or you experience Shinjin, I think that further in this writing called Notes on One's Calling, Many Callings, Shinran says, further it is to hear, to listen to the teaching. Is a teaching or truth that indicates Shinjin. So in other words, the fact that you want to listen, to hear, and to learn, as you have done today by participating in a seminar, that you can take to be an expression of Shinjin. So I have felt this more and more in recent years, and I found this passage in Shinran's writing that really excited me, because here's kind of a verification of what I was feeling. And then here, and then this is my view. If you have sincerely sought to learn and to hear the teachings for a significant amount of time by entrusting in the teachings with strong aspiration, aspiration means desire for enlightenment, you can take your action as quote unquote evidence of Shinjin. Sincerity, entrusting, and aspiration are the three minds of the 18th vow that we read earlier. So when I talk about evidence, and people will say, oh, no, we don't do that, because in Jodo Shinshu, we don't have talked so much about evidence or proof and things of that nature. In fact, in Zen Buddhism, especially in Rinzai Zen, the teachers tell the student that you now have Satori or Kensho. And I actually went to a session where the teachers confirmed a guy who was sitting next to me in meditation that at the end that he had attained Kensho, which was very strange to me because we in Shinshu, we don't do that. We leave it up to that individual. But the problem is that we leave it up to the individual, then we're not sure. So that's why I have just quoted from Shinran a couple places, and now I'm quoting, sharing my thought that if you have a desire to listen to the teaching sincerely without any kind of rewards, none of you are getting any kind of payment from the temple because you're participating in this seminar, right? Because you want to learn, you have this sincere wish. So sincerely and entrusting and aspiring to understand, these are the minds of the 18th vow. The 18th vow says that. So I think we have a kind of a justification to feeling that if you have made a sincere effort for a prolonged period of time, some amount of time, that it is an expression of Shinjin. And then finally, we experience a sense of well-being about this life and the life after, because one feels assured that things will be all right, being embraced in a vow, name, Amida, great compassion. Even if we experience the occasional sense of uncertainty, that too is okay, because the very target of Amida, vow, name, great compassion, is none other than such a foolish and imperfect being. So earlier I talked about how I have felt this sense of well-being in the last 20, 30 years, especially in the last 20 years. And but even then, you have little doubt that will I be embraced even after I die in this great compassion? Or put it in a way, will I be born in the Pure Land? There is an uncertainty sometimes because we're ordinary foolish beings. But Shinran says in Tanisho, because we have such doubt, we are all the more confirmed in the fact that you are the target of Amida's compassion, because such foolish and imperfect beings who have uncertainties are the very target of Amida. So, and then I want to share this. I shared this in Facebook, and this flower. I don't know what I know it in Japanese is shikuramen, so cyclamen or cyclamen. But anyway, it didn't bloom at all last year, and but this year, just 3 weeks ago, it bloomed, and so I'm really relishing this, relishing the now, being hopeful for tomorrow. And then here is a statue of Shinran representing him at the age of 61, returning to Kyoto after 20 years of propagating in the Kanto area. He's going back to Kyoto, and I love his this gesture, his countenance, his facial. He's determined, and he has so much desire to want to do more, and to study more and to write more, and so those of us who have reached past 60, it's not the end. We have much more to do, much more to hope for, and so it's rooted in Shinran's "Oh, how happy I am! My heart and mind are planted in the soil of universal vow." So I hope that each and every one of you feel the similar, if not the same, then the Shinjin or the realization is no different for Shinran than us. So we should feel confident that we too can have this kind of resolute happiness. And I close with Namo Amida. Okay, so we do have good. I think I'm on time. We started out kind of late, so we still have close to, well, 10 minutes. So, okay, please, you have just unmute yourself and speak up.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you speak a little louder, closer?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Good. Hi, everyone. Aloha. Can you turn on your cameras? It's so nice to see everybody. Are you really here or are you taking a little break? Dr. Tanaka Sensei, thank you so much for your words and bringing us all together. As I see all the names, I'm really sorry I was unmuted when we joined the meeting when Barbara was speaking. I'm so sorry for our rudeness, Barbara. But as we're approaching the 5 o'clock hour and I'm busy, I need to go, and I was hoping that we could unmute and say the Nembutsu together before we adjourn at 5 o'clock. Would that be possible?
Yeah, we can do it now for those who want to leave, okay? So, okay. Okay, we do this kind of more Namandabu. Okay, we do it about 10 times. How about that? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, that was nice. Thank you. Rose, you can go. See you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha.
Bye.
Mahalo. Oh, so we have more faces that are, okay, good. Hey. Oh, Dexter, good to see you. And Reverend Kamuro, good to see you. Okay, so we have 10 minutes to
Taka Sensei, maybe one more question
sure.
Before we close. Anybody please unmute yourself and start talking. It's probably the one last chance. Is there any questions?
Oh, comment. Well, maybe I'll just call on Dexter, because Dexter, you have anything to say?
No, Sensei, thank you very much for your talk. I enjoyed, your kind of being honest and sharing your kind of personal views on sometimes, things like Shinjin and Pure Land that have, different interpretations. And so appreciate your perspective, especially since, you have so much to share. So thank you, and especially the workings of Amida in the Saha world, as something that helps to guide us each day, and the Pure Land as something we find, after death. So, thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to have some understanding of what happens after death, but that is also contingent on how we feel here and now. So if we can feel the workings of Amida in this life through the different blessings that we contemplated on, and there are many blessings, and the more awakened or enlightened you are, more blessings you feel. That, so Buddha or Shinran Shonin, they felt so much more blessings in this very life. So in a way, this very life was like Pure Land. It's not the Pure Land, And so, but the problem is that when we're so caught up within ourselves, we don't see that. We don't see the blessings that are all around us. And just like my complaint about my wife forgetting her cell phone. So it's more me first. And whenever you are attached to a certain way of looking at something, then you miss all the blessings that are all around us. And the point that I emphasize today is that those blessings are their blessings, the source of those blessings, those things that nurture and enlighten us, life and light. Okay, Amida is life and light. Life is, the sustenance, the food and things that gives us life, but also light. Light is wisdom. So we say Amida is wisdom and light, wisdom and compassion, right? So we can see the blessings of wisdom and compassion in the everyday things, in the physical, the mental, and the societal. And so they're all around us. We just don't see it because we're too caught up in ourselves with our gas, greed, anger, and stupidity. And they will never be eliminated completely as long as we're ordinary foolish beings. But we become more aware of them, and I think we can definitely improve. You're not as critical of others or complain as much as before. And Shinran Shonin says that. In his letters, he says, the more you understand, you try not to hurt others, you try not to do offensive things, but yet, we still are very self-centered in many ways. But I think as ordinary human beings, that is much better than if you didn't have that vertical axis and certainly the circle. So make sure that you realize your life as one of walking that path, the vertical path, but also know that wherever you are already in the circle. You're already there, and this life and the life after. But we still, bitch about this and that. But, catch yourself and say, when you do Namo Amida Butsu. And so in order to help us to be sensitive to these blessings, though, that's why I suggested doing things like, saying Namo Amida Butsu before meal, and going to the altar once a day, and doing toilet gassho and gassho to shoes. So by doing this, you become more sensitive. You open to yourselves. Buddhism is not simply, blind faith. You have to cultivate yourself. You have to, and it takes effort. And but by doing so, you begin to see more and more of the blessings And if you do that, then you know that Amida is a source and Amida is working through that. And when this life is over, you return to that oneness and then come back as an expression, part of that the love and compassion and equality and oneness. Okay, I think that takes us to exactly where we started. So Reverend Majima, I'll give it back to you, or Reverend Kaufman.
Hi, thank you, Tanaka Sensei. Kaufman Sensei, let me return the microphone to you. Kaufman Sensei. Hello.
Yes, thank you, Sensei. On behalf of myself and Reverend Majima and Reverend Hojo, Mrs. Saiki, and all the participants of this seminar, I'd like to thank you most graciously for all your efforts. You've expanded my understanding, and I think you've expanded the understanding of many of the people here. So thank you, sir, and please take care of yourself.
Well, I look forward to visiting you in Hawaii once this pandemic is over. And yeah, you know, as you know, my great-grandfather immigrated to Hawaii. That's what started our recent, you know, connection to the U.S. And my grandson is actually the 6th generation in my family who spent most of one's life in America. So it's Hawaii is also always object of my fond thoughts, and I'd like to visit Kauai once again. So
we'll definitely look forward to that.
Okay, yeah. So please take care, and hope to see you again.
Same to you and yours.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you all.
Okay.